talking about the theme of today, Muslimah, honoring the past, treasuring the present, and shaping the future. We all agree that Allah has indeed placed Muslim women in a place of pride. Sometimes we do not even realize how much Allah has exalted us as women. But then how to place our rightful place in society if we do not even understand where we're coming from, if we cannot honor the great Muslim women who have gone before us, if we do not treasure the moment we are in currently by understanding the roles that we play and understanding how we can shape the future. And to do justice to this topic for us today is no other person than someone that I consider eminently qualified to speak to us on our roles as Muslimas in shaping the future. And speaking to us today, I would like to invite Mrs. Mosun Bello Olushoga, who is popularly known as Auntie Mo. Auntie Mo is the lead consultant and chief executive officer of the Knowledge Center Limited, a world-class service provider with specialty focus, credit training accountant in 1983, winning the first place of the Society of Women Accountants of Nigeria Awards in the qualifying professional examination. This indeed started a record of first, as she was the first female executive director of Guarantee Trust Bank, the first female director of Access Bank, the first female director of Premium Pensions Limited, the first African director of Global Alliance for Women in Banking, the first female chairman of Access Bank, and first female pro-chancellor and chairman of Council of Olabisi Onabanjo University. During her tenure as chairman Access Bank recorded unprecedented growth in key parameters, which has seen it emerge as Nigeria's #1 bank. She is also the immediate past co-chair of the Nigerian chapter, Women Corporate Directors, and was named one of the 100 most reputable Africans in 2018. And Timo is passionate about knowledge sharing, personal and professional grooming, and the quest to transform children into responsible, socially responsive, and culturally balanced adults. This has led to the founding of City of Vehicle to achieve this in great knowledge and expertise over our past years, and for her to share with us on the theme of today, Muslimas. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ma'am.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure, and I'm really honored to be part of the virtually having. So it's my pleasure. Is somebody controlling my screen? Can I do it myself, please?
Oh, okay.
I'd like to control this screen myself. Thank you.
Okay, ma, so you can share from your end, ma.
Yes, please. Okay, somebody is sharing for me. Okay, I've been disabled. Can I please? You can. Okay, thank you very much. I just gave you just for backup, so if something happens. So let's start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Pleased Allah for us to see today, and so I'm very grateful for His mercies on us, for Him letting us. I know some people have it, but we're still here. We're healthy, and it's through Allah's mercy. I pray for His forgiveness. I'm asking for Allah's grace, His mercies on our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best of His creations and His companions. May we be in the day of Al-Qiyamah. So I've been asked to talk about, and thank you, my sister, Bati. And called me, I was quiet, thinking that, okay, I'd love to do this, but there's no way I'm leaving my house. Then when she said it was virtual, I said, fantastic. I'll do virtual any day I'm game. So we're going to be talking about honoring the past, treasuring the present, and shaping the future. And as my sister Rashida say, we Muslims ourselves, we don't even know the kind of has given us. So we need to know ourselves and the heritage. So basically, I'm just going to bring our past, evaluating the present and how people actually see women in general and specifically Muslim women, and how we as an ummah can shape the future as women, as gender parity. You know, we just left the International Women's Month, right, a few days ago. So I'm very passionate about women and women cause, right? Let's talk about gender parity. The suffrage movement started in 1848 in the Union, spread across continents. In time, were considered properties of either their father or their husband, and they had no voting rights, and no. Women's livelihood was significantly dependent on their choice of spouses. So who they married was very, very important, and their roles were just limited to bearing and raising children. So they were not considered anything other than procreators. And during that period, spousal rape was recognized. So if you were a wife and your husband rapes you every night, it wasn't considered a rape, it was considered his right, and domestic violence was very rife. Women were also not considered worthy of education, so they didn't have as much education opportunities as the male child, and the children belonged to their fathers, but their upbringing. Legal, cultural, and religious rights of women were fairly non-existent during that period. However, you know, in spite of all that, there have been some exemplary women in the past. The first I'm going to be talking about is a lady called in Ashur in Iraq, and this was in right. She was a very, very wealthy and astute businesswoman. And you had Queen Moremi, our own Queen Moremi of Ile-Ife. She lived in the 12th century, and she was fabled to have delivered the Yoruba race from oppression. And she was so passionate about the emancipation of Yoruba race that she sacrificed her only son. Then we had Queen Amina Zaria, who was a warrior queen, and she was also reputed to be the ever had, better than her male predecessors. We had, there was also Margaret Hedgebrook, who lived in New York, and she was a very, very successful business woman. And at that period, she was the wealthiest woman. Yeah. You had Elizabeth Stanton and Susan Anthony. These ladies, very, very passionate, and they were reputed to have, you know, they were passionate about the women's rights as well as slave rights. And they were reputed to have been very involved in the granting of women rights to vote during that period. So it was their work that enabled women to vote by the 20th century. Then let's talk about, can you see this okay properly? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. We can see your screen clearly and can hear you clearly, ma'am.
Excellent, excellent. Then we have our own historic female leaders. The first that I'm very passionate about is our mother, the mother of believers, Khadija, right? The wife of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everybody knows that she was a very, very successful businesswoman. She was a trader and she was very, very wealthy. And she had the privilege of being the first person to accept the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you had Fatima, daughter of our prophet, right? She was a beloved daughter. And incidentally, she was the only child of our prophet who survived him out of all his children. Unfortunately, she also died 6 months after his death, but she was the only one that survived her father. And she was very, very powerful in the teachings of faith, devotion, modesty, and just in pure strength. Then we have Aisha bint Abu Bakr. She obviously, I call her the love of our prophet's life, right? She was incidentally the only virgin that he married, but she was a very, very intelligent woman, and she was a well-known authority in medicine, history, poetry. Very, very intelligent. She was a brilliant scholar and a teacher, and she was reputed to have narrated over 2,000 hadiths of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she was also a warrior, so she was just not in the house. She was also a warrior, often accompanied the Prophet on several wars, and she actually also led the battle of the Camel. Then you had the first female surgeon, Sumaya bint Kaya, right? She was a woman of intelligence. Okay, sorry, Sumaya was the first martyr of Islam, right? She was a woman of intelligence, and she recognized the truth about Islam and what the Prophet was preaching. And obviously, she has been accorded a place in Al-Jannah because of her faith and because she was the first martyr of Islam. And she refused to recount on her belief as a Muslim. Then we have Rufaida. Rufaida is or was an Islamic medical and social worker, and she was recognized as the first female nurse and also the first female surgeon. And she was originally a slave of Spanish origin, but because of her intelligence, she was palace secretary to 2 caliphs after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was a very, very skilled mathematician, scientist, and she was reputed to have presided over the library, which had over 500,000 books. So it's only one intelligent person. So if you asked her about a subject, she knew where the books were and she would give it to you. And she was also very, very excellent in writing, grammar, and she was a poet. There was also Al-Malika, right? And she was the queen of Yemen, right? She was a very, very versed lady, versed in religious sciences, the Quran, the Hadith, poetry, and history. And her reign was reputed to have moved Yemen from the primitive stage into a more modern state during the period through various construction and infrastructural developments. And she was reputed to be perhaps the most singular important example of an independent queen in Muslim history. We also have had very great women leaders. So we have some past female heads of state who were Muslims. A lot of people will remember Benazir Bhutto. She was very, very popular in the mid-late 80s. She was the former prime minister of Pakistan. We had Tansu Sila, who was a former Turkish prime minister. In Africa, we had Madame Major Boye, who was a former Senegalese prime minister. Khalida Zia was in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has had two female prime ministers. Then you have conception about Islam is that they don't allow the women to come to the forefront to make decisions and things like that. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. We also have Sisi Mariam, who was the former Prime Minister of Malaysia. We had the former President of Kosovo, Atifete, and Amina Gurib, who was the former Prime Minister of Mauritius, and Megawati Sukarnoputri, who was the former Prime Minister of Indonesia. So truly, Muslim women have been known to be engaged in all spheres of the economy. So they were rulers, they were warriors, they were teachers, they were doctors and things like that. So the narratives that we're hearing that, oh, Muslims are oppressed and Muslim women are oppressed and things like that, it is certainly not the truth. And it behoves on us as women leader to ensure is changed. So current reality is really about women and women affairs now, not particularly about Muslim of female leaders in business and leadership of corporate organizations started in 1980. In 1990, only 5 of Fortune 500 companies had female CEOs. By the year 2020, the number had risen to 37. It's still not great, but it's a progression. Nigeria has featured several female C-suite executives in the last 5 years, and unprecedentedly during my tenure as chair, I call myself chairman. You know, when it comes to that, it is not gender sensitive. So when I was chairman of Access Bank, we had unprecedentedly 3 female chairpersons heading bank boards. So you had Auntie Murray as the chair of GT Bank, as well as Ibukun Awosika as the chair of First Bank. And you see that these are not just ordinary small banks, they were huge banks. And for people to some of the current realities we also have is that there have been very, very slow progress in gender parity. You remember that we have 17 SDGs, right? Sustainable Development Goals. And SDG number 5 is actually on gender parity, right? Unfortunately, no country in the world has achieved gender parity. The best that we have is in Iceland, which is about 40-something%. So no country. The US is in the 20s, right? And let's not talk about Nigeria, we're just so bad. Women are absent from where policies are being developed. So when you are absent from when decisions are made, right? You know, Abiola says you can't shave my head in my presence, right? You are not able to bring forward what your major concerns are or what your issues are. Political and economic empowerment is lacking for over 50 dependent and face threats of financial abandonment, right? So a lot of women stay in healthy marriages because, number one, of shame, number two, because of their financial situation. And unfortunately, women are more often give up their careers. Very, very few men give up their careers to take care of their children. Culturally, we frown against that. Even when your in-law, the wife has just the husband, you have turned your husband into a maid and things like that. So we also need to change the way of our thinking. It is a partnership. It's not, the marriage is a partnership. It's not slavery, right? And the work that women do as caregivers, right? Taking care of the children and of the family is mostly unrewarded. Is not it's not valued, and at times people feel, the women now feel used and, you know, unappreciated. Women also constantly battle emotional trauma from poor choices, workplace harassment, and victimization. And a lot of this Me Too was a pushback about work sexual harassment. So let me quickly run through the statistics about gender equality that I have. So women, the world population, you know, depending on where you get your statistics from, is about 50-50. Some people will say male 51, female 49. Some people will say male 49, female. So let's just say we're even, we're even in terms of population. Life expectancy, you know, it's surprising. In spite of all the work that women do, they also are, on the average, live 6 years longer than men. Taking care of the family, there's unfair division and unpaid work for domestic work, and this is usually the woman that takes care of the. See, in situations, you know, I'm sure a lot of us career women, when we come back from work, right, we're still expected to ensure that the family gets fed properly. Even if we have house helps and things like that, it is your own responsibility to supervise. So the husband will more often than not, you know, go and have a shower and sit down, watch news and things like that. So you know, drop your bag and you're quickly going into the kitchen to ensure that things are properly done. That is if you have a maid. If you don't have a maid, you are the one that will do that. And you're also the one that you're supposed to supervise the children, their homework and things like that. And you know, the Yoruba say, so you have to ensure that your children so the straight and narrow. Women also earn 30% less for the same amount of work. And this we consider unfair. So if I and my male counterpart do the same amount of work, more often than not, he gets 30% more than I do. And unfortunately, 750 women and girls are married before their 18th birthday. A lot of people say it is Islam, and I want each and every one of you to debunk it. It is more cultural leadership positions and things like that, that there's the self-confidence gap, and women women desire, but they would rather not do. And I'll talk a little bit about this and give you my own personal experience. And at times they think that women are physically incapable to handle pressure and intense, okay, because we cry and things like that, but it doesn't mean that we're weak. Again, in some cultures or around, we're not considered that significant. Ideas don't count and may not be heard, or may require fine-tuning or repackaging to sell. And let me make a little bit of digression. I was in France at INSEAD on a program, and I happened to be, when you're on a large program, then for discussions, they break you into smaller groups. And most of my group members, unfortunately, were Arab men, so Saudi, Kuwaiti, Bahrain, from those areas. And we're discussing. And, when I wanted to talk, because they would just talk over me. They would just talk over me. And there was a time I was talking, they just turned their back. So I looked at them and I said, excuse me, what's going on here? Then they occurred to me that it's their culture, right? And a lot of people cannot distinguish between culture and religion, and that is the problem that Islam has. So culturally, something is permissible, and just because it's an Islamic state, they just think that is Islam. But it is our own responsibility to say, no, this is this person's culture and not Islam. So let's make a distinguishing, let's distinguish between culture and religion. So they are also not trusted to handle tough deals, negotiations, and also that we're not able to close news-breaking type transactions. So they are reserved to handle unimportant issues. And in workplace, so you find that, okay, women are the head of HR, admin, and things like that, so that is perception. And most organizations are realizing that this fallacy is not true, and take advantage of physical enhancements while ignoring mental capabilities. We had a top person come into Guarantee Trust by a time at a particular point, and the bank she was working in, they were used to having, girls, ladies, do their marketing, and they sell other things apart from banking. So she came, and the first thing, we had a leadership meeting, and the first thing she said, I don't see the girls. I don't see the girls. And I used to work in GT, and Ag said, because he knew where he was coming from, I just said, we sell this, and she got the message sank in. But needless to say, she didn't spend up to 6 months because she wasn't used to working in an environment where people use their intellect rather than their bodies. So women are also considered marginalized. Population data, like I said, about 50-50, but women, unfortunately, are less preferred for senior roles in organizations, and they're perceived to be, because women are plain, all right? They are honest. They believe that everybody that deals with them is also honest. So at times, people, I've been called gullible before, but because I have a pure heart and you have a rotten heart, I'm not going to change myself. So call me gullible, I'm fine. So I like to believe the best in people, and that is what women are. So unfortunately, we are taken advantage of, right? And women are routinely underpriced and underpaid in the same role as men. It has happened to me when I was in the bank. Our first set of EDs were junior to me. I think I had left university before they dreamt of going into university. I was a full 2-year-old manager. One of the EDs was an AGM, 2 others were DGMs, but that is what happens. And at times, when you have 2 people vying for the same job, male and female, more often than not, the job will be given to the male. And that's just reality. So we're viewed as oppressed, right? Abuse in every sector, domestic violence, right? Abuse in schools, business, workplace. And like I said, it was the abuse, the sexual harassment of producers, of directors in Hollywood that started this need to, because people were very, very, they were scared to say what has been happening to them because they were afraid that they won't get jobs and things like that. But when somebody now stands up and say, no, I will not accept this, other people will now start coming up and say, no, this is not acceptable. And that was how Me Too movement started. And also, unfortunately, we also have this kind of abuses in religious organizations. We had a symposium that we about sexual and child and women abuse, and we invited the police PRO, Dolapo Badmus. She was one of the guest speakers, and she said, unfortunately, when reports are made, and it's the head of the religion, so it could be the imam, but fortunately, it wasn't the most of the complaints were not about the Muslim faith. I don't know if it was because they didn't invite a lot of them, but it was mostly about pastors. I'm not saying our own imams are not as guilty, but it was mostly. But what she said was that more often than not, the church members will come and say, no, he's a man of God. They're trying to put him down, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry, we'll go and say, we're going to sort it out amongst ourselves. And this is how these religious leaders get away with unacceptable behavior. And like I said, at times, women are bypassed for promotion and often denied recognition of work done. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this movie by Whoopi Goldberg. She was a very, very good analyst and a very good investment banker. But nobody would talk to her because she was, number one, female, number two, Black. So she now came up with this persona. So she put on a face mask and she became a white male. And all the transactions now went through. So they now gave her an award, and she now removed her mask and said, look, it doesn't matter whether you are Black, white, yellow, whatever, it's the intellect that you should be focusing on. And at times, when a woman is brilliant, it scares men, right? And we have the tendency to play ourselves small, that, you're that, okay, maybe let me just be quiet and just get by. And we don't want to display the full extent of our brilliance. And at times, we also find it very difficult to accept compliments. Oh, Antimo, you look nice. Oh, this one, it's not expensive. Try and embrace compliments to the full extent. Oh, you did a brilliant presentation. Oh, yes, thank you very much. I worked very hard to it. They'll say, oh, it's okay. So let's not continue to play ourselves small. So what do we need to do? We need to change the narrative, right? We need to change the narrative about Islam and about women. And because we are going to be handing over to our daughters, let them be comfortable being girls, being women, and let them be comfortable being Muslims. If you know who you are comfortable in your skin. So we need to change the narrative. And how do we change the narratives? And I'm saying that women have to sponsor women, bold, brave women to drive and seek the change, to drive and sponsor the change we seek. I consider myself very, very privileged. Therefore, I have the responsibility so I'm very careful in the way I believe, in the way I behave, and in the way I present myself. Because first and foremost, I'm a Muslim. Secondly, I'm a woman. So I want people to see who I am as a Muslim woman who is also very competent. So we have to ensure that we sponsor policies favoring gender parity. And how can we do this? The only way we can do this is by making sure that we put ourselves in political situations, right? When I did a presentation for IOD, Institute of Directors, about 4 years ago, and we're talking about, it was International Women's Day, so we're talking about women parity. In Nigeria, at that time, 8%, 8 point something percent of only 8% of parliamentarians were women. Guess what? This dispensation, it has reduced to only 5%. And in Nigeria ranks about 178 out of 191 countries that were surveyed, right? It is really, really bad. And like I said, Rwanda was top of the list. And what happened was that when you look at the countries that have females at the top of the helms of affairs, you will see that they make a lot more progress. Just look at this pandemic period. The countries that had the lower infection rates were all ruled by women. And the countries that had the highest infection rates were male. And not only male, the very, very egocentric male. So don't let me mention names. I'm sure you all know. So we have to provide capital for women-owned businesses, right? So we have to support ourselves. I've told you about the W desk in Access Bank. However, we ourselves also have to make sure that we present ourselves, right? We put ourselves in situations that people will be able to help us. Wimbies had a competition, right? And they had a grant from the United States that they were going to give, I've forgotten the amount, maybe $15,000 or $20,000 to women running small scale businesses. So 20,000 for a small scale business, it's quite a distant amount, but you had to apply and put your business plan and things like that. The president at that time was my cousin, Adiola Aziz. So Adiola calls me, Auntie Mo, that you know about this? I said, yes, but you know, I'm too old because there's he said, but you know what? I don't have one single application from any woman, from any Muslim. So at that time, I think I talked to the NAFSAT person that I know at that time. But you know, if you don't put yourself in the, you know, you have to enter the bus to get to a destination. Right? Most of us just want to play ourselves small, and we don't want to, we don't want to do politics because politics is a dirty game. We don't want to do business and things like that. We have to, right? Even if you fail, try. Then when you fail, you learn from the failure and move forward. And women, we have to provide learning and other resources for success. So you seek out these things. BOI, Bank of Industry, has dedicated funds for women. I don't know how many of you have applied, but they're not just going to give you the money. You have to show them that you know what you want to do with the money. So give them very good business plan. How are you going to invest the money? How are you going to repay them back? Because it's not charity. but very, very few women would assess this. We don't want to leave our comfort zone. Nothing is going to be handed to you on a platter of gold. You have to move. You have to do the work that needs to be done. And we Muslims are particularly guilty of this. So we have to embrace the new ideas and innovative initiatives, new strategies, new tactics. And I'm saying innovate, create, and execute. So there's no point having brilliant ideas without you executing those brilliant ideas, right? Your idea will remain nothing on the pages of your book if you don't execute. And please embrace failure. There's nothing in failure. What's this? My author that I like, I've forgotten. He calls it fail forward. So yes, fail. You fail forward. You look at what made you fail. You dust yourself up and say, okay, this is the thing that I did. I didn't succeed with. Then I will have to do this. John Maxwell, that's his name. Sorry. Right? He calls it fail forward. So yes, try. It doesn't matter how many times you fail. It's about the success that is at the end of the tunnel. And Denzel Washington also said that there is nothing that is worse for you, that failure is actually better than for you than success. That success makes you complacent. But when you fail, you become hungry. That is if you don't give up. A lot of us tend to give up before we reach the promised land. So let your life be a lifelong learning process. New knowledge versus old knowledge, and you marry the two. And when I'm talking about old knowledge, you learn from people, right? What did they do that made them succeed? What did they do that made them fail? And that is why I love reading autobiographies. So if you look at my library, you will see from the former Prime Minister of Singapore to the ruler of Dubai, to my Kabiyesi, the Awujale of Ijebuland. I've just started reading about Zone, Mr. Shobanjo. So just read about successful people. What are those traits that you like in them, and try to emulate them. So you need to upgrade your knowledge base. Yes, about your business, but also about your religion. We don't know enough about this religion. If you know enough about this religion, all the preconceptions that people are telling you that are not lies, you will debunk them immediately. When they tell you females are oppressed, you say that the earliest women, the earliest Muslims were very, very rich businesswomen. They were warriors. They were not people who were just, they were teachers, right? Buhari, who is known to be one of the biggest narrators of the Prophet's hadith, was said, when I was reading his biography, he was pushed to learn by his mom. So his mom will take him to an ustaz, and once he knows that this ustaz has, what her son needs to learn is at the utmost, goes to a higher level and goes to a higher level. So we need to continuously learn about our businesses without forgetting to learn about our religion. So when we learn about our religion, we know what is right and what is not. We know the truth and not what is a lie. So I went to deliver the Oyo State government during Ajumobi, the first lady had a conference, and I was invited to speak. So one of the questions that I was asked was that, and so supposing your husband doesn't allow you because you are a Muslim. I said, no, it's not because you're a Muslim, it's because that is his nature, right? They won't let you go to school. The Prophet says, seek knowledge as far as to China. And Allah himself has said, how can you worship me if you don't know me? How would you not know me? How would you know me if you don't learn about me? So we have to learn about our religion. So I told her that, do you know that if your husband marries you, you don't need to change your name? I said, no. I said, if you change your name, it is your own decision. If you breastfeed your child, your husband has to pay you, right? If you take care of the house, it is because you want to. It is not because he's mandating you to. It's a partnership, like I said. It's not slavery. And in this environment, we have to learn about digitization and digital engagement. We are digitally engaging now. We're doing Zoom. So supposing we're telling, okay, I'm not going to be involved, then this conference probably would not take place, right? And we also have to study cultural changes and market dynamics to know where we fit, and also be able to separate culture from religion. And we also need to know about commerce and ecosystems. So start new dialogues, challenge status quo, demand attention. How can you demand attention? By bringing forward your intellect, and also get feedback. So how did I do, right? And please do not be, when somebody critiques you, I don't like criticizing. So when you critique, learn to take feedback, right? Whether positive or negative, the ones that you know that you can use, take them. But there are some that are just what I call bad belly. Then they discountenance those. And also demand results of yourself. Have targets for yourself and have milestones for yourself. How do we do this? So new behaviors. So how do you see women generally? You know, I hear a lot about women not supporting women. And I say, look, for me, this is not true. When two women disagree, they say it's because they're women. They are individuals. When men disagree, why don't they say it's because they are men? They are individuals. So I don't see. So how do you see women? Do you like working with women? I do. And how do you yourself portray yourself as a woman? I was interviewing somebody. Sorry, am I done?
No, but I was acknowledging, though we are quite running short of time, but definitely
okay.
I'll
finish soon. I'll finish soon. So it also depends on how you want people to see you. So she came with her boobs almost hanging out. I said, you don't want to portray yourself as a loose girl. And I met her years down the line, and she says, Auntie Mo, look at me. I always wear a camisole. I said, why? He said, you interviewed me, and this is what you said to me. Well, so let it sink. So have collaborations. And I just want to share something. There are some female Muslims that are shattering stereotypes. So there is nothing that we can't do. So we have the present president of Singapore, Halima Yakub. We have the newly installed president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu, right? Then you have the UAE's Minister of Culture. Rashida is one of two, she's one of the first two Muslim women House of Rep members. Then you have supermodels, you have filmmaker, writer, Nadia Hussein is a British award-winning baker and chef, a fashion designer. Then you have Stephanie Kolo, who is the first professional hijabi ballerina, right? The poetic pilgrimage is hijab wearing hip hop duo. We have Hadid, Zaha Hadid. She is an iconic architect. She designs iconic buildings. So I'm giving all this. The Malan is the H&M first hijab model. I'm giving all this because it is not, let's not stereotype ourselves, right? You can do anything and everything that you want to do. But at times, you just have to blaze the trail. For example, I make bold. I want to be corrected. I'm the first female Muslim who covered her head when she was doing, annual reports, right? I don't recall seeing any Muslim woman with head covering on annual reports until my time. When I started covering my hair, people were making fun. right? Even Muslims are that she's fundamentalist and things like that. That is the responsibility of a trade. Somebody will laugh at you. Now that everybody is covering their head, it is now commonplace. But some of us suffered ridicule at a certain time. So my advice is that we have to overcome conditioning, improve knowledge through continuous learning, unlearning, and relearning. There are some things that we have learned that is not true. So let's recondition ourselves and also eliminate self-doubt. When I was approached to be chairman of Access Bank, the first thing is that, can I do it? But there are people who see you that you can do it. And at times we do need people who will be able to push us and say, you can do it. And that is why we need mentors, people who will say, yes, you can do it, and support. And just defy status quo. The Muslim woman has been so denigrated that you can't do this, you are oppressed, you are this and that. We can do anything and everything that we put our minds to. So in honor of International Women's Year, about choose to challenge, on a personal note, I choose to challenge myself to be the best version of myself, to be the best ambassador of Islam through my character and professional excellence. I choose to challenge myself to be the best mother, the best sister, the best friend that I can be. I choose to challenge myself to be the best mentor. Because Rashida was winking at me by that time has gone. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Jazakumullah khairan. You do not know how inspiring this session has been, and I'm sure not just for me. I've been reading the comments as they've been coming through the chat box. I could listen, and I was, chatting with some of the moderators, and I said I could listen to you speak all day, because every single thing you've said is germane. Unfortunately, we are constrained for time, but I do know that, there's been so much packed into this session already. There's so much that you have shared with us. And I want to believe that, listen to you talk about all these wonderful women in the history of Islam. I kept taking notes, and at some point I'm like, no, I just can't keep taking notes. I need to have this presentation and keep going back to it just to remind myself that who am I to not be great? Who am I to think that there is anything that holds me back from being great? And, for me, looking through all of this is also the fact that currently we say that there's a dearth of role models for our ladies, for our young Muslimas, but that's actually false, because just looking at all of this, in fact, you cannot finish studying them in a year if you really sit down and go into the lives and times of these great women. And for me, it's the fact that at this point, we need to begin to ask ourselves, what are the people we're positioning as role models for our young ladies and girls? In our own capacities as mothers, as sisters, as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, how much are we encouraging and sponsoring our young ladies to believe in themselves and to see how much more we can be? Because for me, this is all about, how much more we can be as Muslimas, as Muslim women, as Muslims in general, whether you're Muslim or not, because, they say train a woman and you have trained the entire community. And so for me, Jazakumullah khairan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to elevate you, ma. May He continue to make you a pride for the deen, because I have just added one more mentor to my list of mentors just listening to you speak today. There are questions already, but just in the interest of time, I'd like us to move to the second speaker, and then we can take questions afterwards. I see some questions coming in the chat box. Please, for ease, kindly move all your questions to the Q&A box so that we can easily get to them. I don't know if at your leisure as well, you can access the questions, and if there are some of them that you can already just answer online so people can read the responses there, it would help us manage the time better. Jazakumullah khairan once again for this session, ma. Now we will be going into the sub-theme that is really tied to this. And Auntie Moaz, she has already inspired us. And now we're going to be talking about something that just builds on this. And the sub-theme we'll be talking about is resilient leadership, living a life of influence with focus on the great Muslimas. So you find out that the topics sort of feeds into each other. And to do justice to this topic is another woman of pride for Islam, who has vast experience in terms of Islamic jurisprudence. I'd like to invite Ajia Azizat Amoloye Adebayo. Ajia Azizat Amoloye Adebayo holds an LLB degree in Common and Islamic Law from the Usman Danfodio University. She also holds a PhD degree in Sharia and International Human Rights Law from the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom. She is a senior lecturer and the former postgraduate programs coordinator in the Department of Islamic Law, Faculty of Law, University of Ilorin. She's a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, a Commonwealth scholar, an associate of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, Nigeria and United Kingdom, and a non-resident visiting fellow of the ICLAS. Our research interests and areas of publication are Islamic law, international human rights law, human rights violations, rights of persons with disabilities, Islamic law of inheritance, Islamic family law, issues in law and religion, gender issues in law, and feminist theories in Islam. You will agree with me that with all this academic knowledge and research work around this, definitely there is nobody more that can do justice to this topic. And I would at this point like to invite to please speak to us on resilient leadership, living a life of influence with focus on great Muslimas, Dr. Azizat Adebayo Amoloye. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Azizat. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Azizat. I know she had been on earlier. Have we lost that connectivity? Oh, okay. Can I please have the coordinators help me move her? I see she's in the attendee section. Can we please move her to panelist? I think she dropped off briefly.
She's joining now.
Thank you very much, sir. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Azizat. You have the floor, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now, yes. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be here and to be speaking after someone that I think it's more than eminently qualified and has proven that in person of Mo, in the run I just felt, what more do I need to add?
Assalamu alaikum, ma. Your screen is up and we can hear you now, though you went off
Okay.
briefly for a bit.
Very, very thought-provoking, challenging, and inspiring listening to Auntie Mo. And she has simplified for me my job today. In fact, it's just to satisfy the purpose of my invitation that I'm going to present what I have to present, because she has spoken about examples of great Muslimah in times past. She herself typifies, in my humble view, an example of a great Muslimah living a life of influence in the present time. And she's giving lots of directive. May Allah continue to preserve your life. What today, hujjah for you. Feel what I would say, in order not to parrot what's woman. Muslimah. Now, I am glad Auntie Mo also spoke, and in a number of other contexts, is so much so that women have been socialized to think that they do not matter, that they have less to contribute, that they do not possess leadership qualities, and to take backstage in scheme of things. And that is how I would want to relate my own presentation to Auntie Mo's very, very detailed presentation. What is the Islamic perspective on resilient leadership and living a life of influence? And more particularly, who is a Muslimah according to Islamic contemplation? And if we go to the next slide, please. And as you would find, the definition that I find very, very interesting is that leadership is described as an art of motivating a group of people to act towards your location. Is simply the art of motivating a group of people towards a common goal. I return to that later. Then resilience, of course, the dictionary indication, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, to have this quality of elasticity, and it brings to mind multi. Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. I think the connectivity, the bandwidth seems to be low. Maybe we could try with you putting off your video and see if that would strengthen the bandwidth a bit.
Okay, let's try that. Then Sister Rashida, I am going to depend on you to send me a chat if I've frozen up or if I'm speaking to myself, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. So can you please tell me the last thing that you heard? My definition of resilience?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Alhamdulillah. So I was saying that after defining resilience, and I defined leadership, I defined them generally. Now, in the next slide, number 3, the Muslimah, which is our own. Is she capable? Mo has given a presentation that is quite historical and also contemporary. Historical in the sense of detailing women of substance from the time of the companion of the prophet, then to other centuries in Islam till our contemporary time. And she also, I said, in my own view, typifies a Muslimah who is exhibiting leadership. But what is the Islamic principle of leadership? And as I write here, now, you know, when you talk about leadership, there's this sense to always reduce the discussion to the equality ideology. This competition, is a man better than a woman? Is a woman better than a man? You know, and so on and so forth. And I say that the Islamic principle of leadership is not really about competition, and it's not about rivalry. It's about mutuality. And what is that mutuality? A sharing of feeling, sharing of relationship between two or more parties, okay? So leadership is not something that is ordinarily resident any item of association, be it family, be it a business, or yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. It keeps going off and on, but you know, we're picking bits and pieces in between.
In the sense that you have someone who has all the leadership qualities because the person is the leader or the head. Every other person Islamic principle, you would find that leadership quality is a quality that Allah expects every Muslimah to aspire to. It is not a quality that is perhaps only given to someone who is called that I will some cite that you would find scattered across the Quran from the experiences of people past. You would find that because you are the head, by the fact of being the firstborn, okay, or the husband, or the leader of an organization, does not mean that the leadership quality that is necessary for the family to thrive, for the organization to become successful, or any other community must always reside in you or must always come from you. Now, speaking for the Muslimah, I say the Islamic principle is how Allah seems to have, they are always engaging in competition and rivalry. I cite the example in Surah Yasin, where Allah talked about the moon and the sun. Even though from our view from the earth rather, the sun appears very, very bigger from the moon. And our knowledge says the scientific knowledge that we have so far says that the
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
الشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. Then going down, لا شمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا ليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. Meaning that even though the sun is always, it comes so bright, and Allah says is moving in haste to his destination, in spite of the seeming smallest of the moon, the sun can never and should never, according to the scheme, overtake the moon, according to the scheme of things, okay? It would have its own area of application. The moon would also have its own area of application, and each would begin to operate according to the decree that Allah has made for each one. So even in their movements, okay, when they are in the same line, you have what is called the solar eclipse. When they're on the opposite line, you have what is called the lunar eclipse, but there is never a clash, okay? They will simply pass through and move. So in creation, you would find this mutuality. You would find this cooperation. Alas, it is only humans that we interpret things in terms of rivalry, in terms of competition, so that when you talk about leadership quality in someone, there's a necessary, okay, perhaps a reaction to begin to think, if you say women are leaders, are you suggesting that men are followers? To lead whom? Okay, and so on and so forth. Then we begin this issue of equality. Who is more equal? Who is the head? Yet, for our own purpose, I would argue that leadership is a principle of Islam, and it is a quality that Allah expects everyone to aspire to, and that the leadership quality of one does not affect the other. So in a family, there are situations that it may be that it is the woman that will provide the needed leadership for a particular thing. That is why decision-making in Islam is according to mutual consultation, ashura. Allah directed the Prophet, consult them in affairs. So that's why for the Sahaba, when something comes on and they wanted a solution, they will ask the Prophet, is it about revelation? If it's about revelation, we do not have any opinion, okay? If it's about inspiration from Allah, we also do not have any opinion. But if it's about mundane, material existence, maybe that the leadership quality that's in the person that you consider youngest. If you consider the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, it was second to the last. Yet Allah gave him the leadership. Into the second textual provision that I tangential connection to our focus of, but for that particular thing. Now, you know that in the scale of spirituality, you have Muslim, then there's the Mu'min. Muslim is someone who submits to Islam. Mu'min is a believer. The Muhsin, they're of a higher degree. There are people that are called the doers of good because they are so in tune with the divine will on things that they recognize the inherent good in the doing of good. Good things. Good will merely replicate, okay? But if you also do the other, it replicates, and it's better for goodness to be replicated. And in that particular verse, for our own principle of leadership, Allah says, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي سَرَّاءِ وَضَرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. Now, the first part, those physical and personal time could be spent, material resources, money, property could be spent. But what is most difficult is spending yours. Okay, spending yourself. Allah now says that we have noted can be spent in terms of adversity and plenty. Now, in terms of plenty, as-sarai comes first, then barai. Now, between them is what the Islamic grammarians will call wa'ul atfu. It's a conjunctive word, meaning that both scenarios must go hand in hand to fulfill the purpose of spending. When you only spend what comes easy, you're simply offsetting excess. When you only spend plenty, in fact, the people that you are giving to are actually doing you a favor by recycling your own waste. What qualifies as real spending is when you have the courage to spend in terms of adversity, in terms of stringent resources. So you're only a spender then when you spend not only in terms of plenty, but also in terms that are grossly inconvenient to you, to yourself, to your person, to your resources. But you spend, fisabilillah. وَلِكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. They swallow their anger. Allah did not say they are not going to feel anger, but that they control it. And prophetic tradition. It's not power. To wrestling is not power. Is the person that can control themselves when they are most annoyed. When they are annoyed, that is the powerful person. That is what's explaining this verse in the Quran. Then, they overlook faults from people. They overlook faults from people. When people offend, when people act beneath themselves, when people do acts that, are contrary to what is commonly expected, they overlook with a character of influencing the opposite. Now, if that note place this 3 character sketches that Allah has given, then concluding the verse, Allah, Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin, and Allah loves the doer of good. Allah did not say Wallahu yuhibbul muslimin, did not say yuhibbul mu'minin, yuhibbul muhsinin, meaning that it is a higher grade, and that is why it is a leadership quality. It is something that people are expected to aspire to. Now, again, I give another textual example. The best of human is that person that brings them benefit. Prophetic tradition. Khairun nasi man yanfa'un nasa. The best of you people, according to Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is that brings them benefit. Now, the question I have posed, that I asked on this slide is she capable, the Muslimah, of leadership? Now, the 4th slide, and I'll go to the woman. And I say the other half. Now, and I beg to start from the last articulated point, the Islamic principle of leadership in Islam. I say, if you look at the principles that for the first Quranic provision in Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 134, now in those 3 situations, spending what you have and do not have, okay, swallowing your anger, and overlooking faults. Does it not remind you of womanhood and motherhood? How on earth is a woman that the body is to house creation for the specific period until Allah ordains that it is known as a creation without spending it at grave inconvenience to self. That's why Allah says, in fact, there's nothing a child could do to repay a mother, even for crying out in labor pain, because it is only Allah that knows the gravity of what the spirituality of what goes into making another creation. And it is not possible to be able to do that in terms of womanhood and motherhood without yet you begin to crave it, and so on and so forth, because of time. Again, overlooking faults. When you are trying to mold from birth till the person will become an individual, okay, you have to cultivate these 3 qualities. Living a life in a family, you cannot do but cultivate these 3 principles. Then who more brings benefit to others than someone who sustains the continuous creation of creation itself? Women are central to the continued existence of the humans. By the way, motherhood, as I've said, that a woman is childless is still part of motherhood. The argument is not that because a woman didn't, or Allah has not ordained that someone would be in her womb to come out, does not mean that the woman is not in the fold of motherhood. Why? Even Surah Ashura, Allah says, according to his divine contemplation, Ashura, verse 50, he gives some males, he gives some only females, to some he makes them, and whoever he wills. What does he do? He turns them into he makes them barren. It's according to divine contemplation. So to begin to label some people for what has been divinely ordained is, almost, you can't find adjectives. It shows insufficient appreciation of the majesty and the power of Allah. And all this is typified from the wife of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Aisha, who has the status of Mu'minin with others, was childless. Yet, you would, from account of her description, the facts and characteristics of motherhood, you would find that she also typifies all this. So please, let's always put these things in perspective. A woman, by biological creation, the way Allah has ordained, is someone, the fact of being a woman means they come under the fold of womanhood and motherhood. And you cannot fulfill this in Islam without the trait that I have painted in principle. There are so many, but amongst many, because of time, we'll limit ourselves to that. Then I go to what I call recognition. That the woman is the other half of creation, okay? From the onset of Islamic civilization, with textual basis. That has always been the case. Remember, Atimo kept often returning to the issue of culture and what it has done to the ideological mindset of women. The fact of the socialization is to feel inferior, is to feel subordinate, is to feel as if you do not count, or that you almost have to fight, or you need to validate your position, you need to validate your enjoyment, you need to validate your reward. In fact, you need to always validate your existence. And I will say being on that spot is not the Islamic position. In terms of recognition of women as the half of the human creation, it has always been from the onset. Before I go to textual provision, I've given an example in chapter 33, Surah to Ahzab. Before going into that, I'd like us to examine what we have as the converse case to be able to put the Islamic, treatment of women in appropriate historical perspective. And I say that the status of women was not as a result of any negotiation. It was not a concession. And an example that comes to mind was the issue of Hillary Clinton of United States of America. A few years ago, she contested with the former president of the United States. And, the way it was then, the narrative was that she was going to break the highest glass ceiling in the world. In the world, because whatever happens in the United States is taking the highest office of the state. And it will be like breaking the highest glass ceiling, meaning then that whatever a man could do, a woman could also do. It's a sort of recognition that there is this half of creation and they are capable of this quality. Even though she didn't emerge later as the president, according to popular votes, she won, but electoral votes, the internal, I don't want to go through the internal workings of the US system because it's not a focus of concern. But my point was that, or is that, Hillary Clinton aspired to the highest office in the United States. But Hillary's own mother, just a generation apart, existed in a time where women had no right to vote. Women were tagged as being part of minors that lacked the mental capability to, participate in something as serious as governance, as serious as electing who would represent us, okay, or who will represent them. So Hillary was contesting for the highest office, but our own mother existed in a time where women did not have the right to vote. Now, struggles, negotiations, concessions, many years later, isn't it? Women can now vote. Not only vote, they can even aspire into office. The point I'm making is that it means from the onset, the women, folk, were not considered. They weren't there. The idea of that civilization was such that the woman agency was not important. Limited suffrage was granted. Then it became more wide to accommodate some segments of the community of women. It came to what we now know it to be. Now, the same way for him, of the current human rights system, the English Magna Carta that came into being on 15th of June, year 1215, and other documents after it, the French Declaration, 1789, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1945. If you go through documents, they are male-centric, okay? The pronoun used refer to men, ye, a man, mankind, okay? Everybody considered fashionable, even wrong. But Allah Akbar, the Holy Quran that was revealed thousands of years back, years, hundreds of years of stuff like back to Prophet of Islam, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. granted unalloyed recognition to women. It was, why did I go through this history? To understand the context of revelation. That the context of revelation was such that if Allah had not used inclusive terms to specifically refer to women, that you have your own agency, you are recognized, you have autonomy, you simply referred using terms that signify that are, that are male-centric, but we could of course begin to implication the same way as the United Nations treaty bodies would say the bearer of rights under the United Human Rights System so now her and she, that it refers to human beings. But the Quran does not need such creative interpretation. The Quran does grant rights or allow someone to give rights as a concession. Women did not have to negotiate. It was, I cite one, when Allah was addressing classes of, in terms of his servants. In Surah Ahzab, it's the chapter 33, verse 35. Allah could simply have used the genitive form, for instance. We didn't have to say Muslimah. You say carries the signs that it is in the male genitive form, linguistically and grammatically. We know that in interpretation, a Muslim is a Muslim. But in this verse, what did Allah say? Inna li muslimina wa li muslimat. So we know we can use the word Muslimah. We didn't just create it. Wa li mu'minina wa li mu'minat. The first, the Muslim and the Muslimah, the person that submits to Islam, men and women, very clear. Wali mu'minina wali mu'minat, the believer, men and women. Waqanitina waqanitat, the devout, men and women. Wasradikina wasradiqat. Okay, the true ones, men and women. Wasrabirina wasrabirat, the patient ones, men and women. Wala khashi'ina wala khashi'at, the humble ones, those who are in every situation because of the excessive fear of Allah. That power only belongs to Allah. So Allah says, khashi'ina wal khashi'at, wal mutasaddiqina wal mutasaddiqat. Those people that give in charity, men and women. Was-sa'imina was-sa'imat. Those people that fast for Allah alone, men and women. Wal hafidhina furujahum wal hafidhat. Those that guard their chastity, their purity, men and women. وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَالذَّاكِرَاتِ. Those that remember Allah frequently, men and women. أَعَدَ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Allah has promised them His forgiveness and a reward that is just. Now, for each of these classes, it will have sufficed for us now as Muslim women, Muslimah, to have simply seen inna li muslimina, wa mutasaddiqina wa sa'imina, would have creatively interpreted ourselves to be inclusive. But why? Allah deliberately set them out so that you know that when I'm talking to you, I am using inclusive terms that no one is left behind, and that women are the other half of the picture. Now, as if this is not enough, note, in using inclusive terms, I am not saying there are not situations that terms are simply used and that you would creatively, but there are situations that is used. But it's okay, isn't it? Even kind, okay, man was this, man contemporary thing now is to use human sight. A man corrected me to say, include yourself, use human beings. We have terms that are included. So the word walid, walida, interpreting only for that. You not say, no, parents. Okay, that's an inclusive term. The word child al-walad. It doesn't mean a girl. Okay, so that central teaching of a status of women to be able to aspire to the leadership quality is not something that they needed to negotiate for, that we need to negotiate for. It's there already. Then I go to autonomy. Autonomy being that you should be able to live a life of influence, a life that is worthy of emulation, a life that is a model that people should aspire to be like you. And I set an example, as Allah did in the Quran, Surah Al-Tahrim, chapter 66, verse 10 to 12. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما فلم يغني عنهما من الله شيئا وقيل ادخلا النار مع الداخلين. The Allah set forth as an example, not to Muslim women, mind you, not to only Muslim women. الذين whoever claims to believe in the wife of Lot, alayhi salam, two of our pious and devoted servants. But this fact of being their wives did not aid them in any way. Why? They betrayed them and they are going to enter hellfire, along with those who enter hellfire. So that their husbands were devout, that their husbands were believers, did not sort of extend their own spirituality to them. They needed to cultivate themselves. They needed to work for Jannah. Okay, so you can't say because my husband is spiritual, then I shouldn't aspire to spirituality. That is what it's saying. That's why I said, Ladina amanu. Then going to the next verse, the first one is ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا. The second one للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين ومريم ابنة عمران التي أحصنت فرجها فنفخنا فيه من روحنا وصدقت بكلمة ربها وكتبه وكانت من القانتين. The wife of Pharaoh. Pharaoh was among the highest transgressors of the will of Allah on earth. And his wife was a devout believer that Allah has granted certificate of Al-Jannah. It's there, textual, that she requested, build for me in nearness to you a house in Al-Jannah. And please save me from the handiwork of Pharaoh and save me from an unjust group. And it was granted. The truthfulness and of the enduring message of Islam. وَكَانَتْ مِنَ الْقَانِتِينَ. And she was among the devout ones. Now, in terms of model, what is a kafir? Under are women that have reached the highest degree. You know, so Auntie Mo already gave an example of the first martyr in Islam being a woman. In fact, in manner of entering paradise, the woman in Islam, once she fasts, prays, prophetic tradition, and is obedient to her husband, she's going to enter through any of the 8 gates of Al-Jannah. when men are on the line. Now, in terms of values or in terms of models that people could aspire to, Allah is very, very clear. Allah is very, very clear. So my intention here is that we come away from this, in addition to what I'm sure we already know of the principle, and that we continue to talk to ourselves about this, so that the effect of years and years of socialization of women thinking that they need people to step down revelation for them, thinking that they need people to talk down to them, thinking that they need people to refract revelation from the male lenses and interpret to them. That era should be one that should have been long gone a long time. In fact, alhamdulillah, Auntie Mo set an example of Al-Bukhari, who became a scholar because of the efforts of the mother. Not only that, Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, I'm sure we're familiar with that name. Ibn, son of Taymiyyah. Taymiyyah is not a man. Taymiyyah is actually a woman scholar of Islam. Because in those days, you will be called. Name is a matter of identity, so that you are recognized. So if they would call Ibn Taymiyyah after the father, it was someone that was not known. But Taymiyyah was the daughter of a scholar, and a scholar par excellence herself, and trained her son as a scholar of repute. So that when you say Sheikh al-Islam, you don't need, and you are referring to Ibn Taymiyyah. And if the Ambali jurist, and the Taymiyyah is the name of a woman. So that we could aspire to those leadership, women could aspire to those leadership quality is not in doubt. Okay, so I would also not take too much time, because I'm glad for the earlier presentation in terms of examples, okay, from the wives of prophets. We already have a presentation dissected most of the examples, but I'll just again add just two from the life of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha and Salma radiallahu ta'ala anha. These are wives of the prophet. We all are very, very familiar with the role that Khadija played.
Assalamu alaikum, ma.
Surah Al-Mudaththir, Surah Al-Muzammil, where Allah described, oh you, because the prophet came away from that shaking, was telling Khadija, wrap me up. To be able to refract that. Now, when I spoke about leadership quality, the point I am making is that these qualities, you say, each and every situation would come from them. Job of the head, Sayyidul Qawmi Khadimuhu, the head, prophetic tradition of any group is actually their servant, is to harness all.
Assalamu alaikum, ma.
Qualities together.
I don't know if you can hear me, but you're beginning to break off again. And we're also running out of, we have run out of time. I don't know if you can hear me.
So being able to motivate people to act. Prophets came away from the Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam afraid, shaky. We're out of time. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Though you also broke off for a bit, but just if you could wrap up. It's been so insightful.
I broke off?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, where did I, so that I can wrap up? What was the last thing you heard?
So you were breaking up in between sentences, so I'm not even sure. So you were talking about Khadija, and then you started breaking off in between sentences.
Hello?
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, but you broke up a bit, but It was in between sentences
if
when
you
you started.
tell me.
So when you
God.
shared the injunction that came when Rasulullah received the revelation and he rushed home to Khadija, but we're actually out of time. So if you could just help us wrap up. I know everybody.
So was that where I broke off?
That was where you started breaking off, ma'am, yes.
Okay, so Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Because after that is actually the last slide.
Okay, ma'am.
Can you hear me? The last slide. And the points, yes. Yes, I was citing that. I was also citing the issue of Salma, when different times that Prophet would come and would be unsure of the next line of action. And the initiative then will be granted by one of his wives. So there's so many, there's no time. So the point I am making, and the point that the way my own theme, the theme of my paper, Muslimah, is by default. I am sorry for my files from 2 different networks, but allow alam. Things will turn out as Allah will. Thank you so much for doing our
she won't be joining us today, but she's ably represented by Alhaja Tinu Muritala, who was the former Zonal Women Affairs Secretary of your zone. She served at the University of Ibadan meritoriously as office technologist, administrative staff on information management to her credit. She's a recipient of many distinction and recognition awards. Her tenure as this Zonal Women Affairs Secretary witnessed giant strides in both membership and development. Join me in welcoming Alhaja Tinu Muritala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Ma, for making our time to be with us today. Our second distinguished panelist is Ajia Surura Oyero. She is a retired school principal. Since retirement, she has been offering volunteer services through the Federation of Muslim Women Association in Nigeria, 41, where she has served in various offices. And she's currently the Assistant Vice Chairman of 41 National Community Development and Humanitarian Services Committee, and a member of the newly constituted 41 WAC Foundation Board. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ma. Aja Oyero, if you're with us, could you please unmute your mic? Assalamu alaikum, ma. I'm sure she'll join us along the way. Also with us is Mrs. Aderisola Adio Adepoju, who is an educator, a life coach, a researcher, and an entrepreneur. She's an advocate for youth and women empowerment through skills acquisition and an Unleashed ambassador. Mrs. Aderisola is the founder of I Train Africa. She teaches entry-level students in University of Lagos, Nigeria. And as an entrepreneur, she is the CEO lead trainer of Daring Culture, a leading fashion school and fashion retail company. Join me in welcoming Mrs. Aderisola Adio Adepoju. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so
and
much.
I'm available now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all for being here with us today. And like I said at the start, please, for our audience, please use the Q&A for your questions so it would be more coordinated. And I hope we all are ready to be dazed by the wealth of knowledge we're about to be unleashed with. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would start with Alhaja Surura Oyero. Could you please share your thought on the topic of discourse, ma'am?
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have been educated. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be a Muslim woman. All that has been said today are so much motivational. Despite my age, I have learned a lot from what was said today. The Muslim woman, it is where we place ourselves. It is what we make of ourselves. It is how we place ourselves. And it is high time we rise to demand the attention that we are qualified for, qualified by Allah's injunction, qualified by our own religion. I think, as the two last speakers said, the Muslimah of today, of this era, we are pace setters. We are the connect between the old and the new. We are the ones that have seen what happened to the past generation, and we are the link to the coming generation. Like we have seen the last two speakers being examples in themselves the rest of us too, especially the younger ones, should be so much motivated to want to follow suit. We should be innovative. Let us create what we want people to know about us and execute whatever we create. Let us learn. Let us unlearn. Let us relearn. Let us read. Our religion enjoins us to seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And when we seek knowledge, we should use the knowledge we have sought in making life a better place for us, for those coming behind us, for our gender, for our children. And I'm of the opinion that the Muslimah is the bridge builder. We are the mothers of society. We are the creators of what the children of tomorrow will be. And to that extent, we are the ones that should inspire the younger Muslimah to assume leadership role in every sphere that they find themselves. I don't know if I'm not taking time. Hello?
I'm with you, Ma. It's fine if you want to stop there for now. We'll
I think I should.
Oh, all right, thank you. Thank you so much, Ma. Moving on to Alhaja Tino Muritala, could you please, Ma, share your thought on the team before we dive further?
Thank you very much. Because of time, I will start on existing protocol. I'm here representing Alhaja Adenike Abdurrahman, and who is unaccountably absent, but she sent her thoughts. She sent us a paper. I don't know time we permit to share the paper, or I just try to summarize her message. The paper is here, I can share it. Hello?
I'm with you, Ma. Please go ahead. We would appreciate if it can be summarized.
Okay, instead of sharing it, I can as well share it, then try to summarize it.
That
so
would be
you
fine,
will
Ma.
see that at least she has sent something to us. But
okay,
you have disabled me, I can't share the screen.
Hold on, we're working on it already.
But actually, what she sent to us about her thoughts,
okay.
The last two speakers, Alhamdulillah, has done justice to some of the points. So I may not repeat what they've said, because in her paper, she took us back to the time of the situation of women in pre-Islamic Arabia, where women were just like commodity to be inherited. They are just ornament. There is no political right. There is no women right of any sort. But when Islam came, Alhamdulillah, Islam gave higher status to women. And women actually, like the last two speakers said, actually took active part in politics, in commerce, went to battle, warriors, collected hadith. She made mention of many examples from our Mama Khadija radiallahu ta'ala, our Mama Aisha, Fatima, may Allah be pleased with them.
Amen.
Then, recently in politics, not recent, she talked much about Zainab al-Ghazali of Egypt. If you have read her biography, The Return of the Pharaoh, how she was able to mobilize women in Egypt. She started by forming Women Association. She, in the course of her struggle to let Egypt be ruled by Islamic law. She was jailed, she was tortured, but she did not relent in her efforts. Then Elijah Adenike moved to the present time and made mention that women has come of age. She cited many examples of our women, some of which I may not repeat because we had their name, but some names which I want to mention, which she mentioned in her paper, are our own women like Moremi, like they've said, like Margaret Ekpo, Fumilayo Ransome-Kuti. Then in our era now, the late Dora Akunyili of NAFDAC, may Allah be pleased with them. Then currently, our own Okonjo Iweala, who is now the director of the World Trade Organization, that they are worthy of emulation. It tells us that women can actually do it. Then she went further to tell us that associating that women cannot lead, associating it to Islam is wrong, that actually Islam supports women leadership, like we've been had since morning. Yes. Then I would like to read what she wants us to take home as a take-home point. I think that is important, and I want to try to read it out. He said, some words of wisdom for you to take away. She said, sisters, I put to you today that relationship is a currency. Everyone needs a person to move up, and that one person may be the neighbor you look down on, or the taxi driver you so despise, and even the house help you think is a nobody. Relationship is a stream of income. Everything in life reproduces on the basis of relationship. Most of us are talented, but we need cupbearer. In essence, okay, you disable. In essence, she's telling us that somebody needs someone who knows someone to move forward, that we should build relationship. We should not look down on anybody, that anybody can take us on. Women, we need other people. We need to support ourselves to move forward, that together we can do it. We are capable of doing it. We think high of ourselves and decided to move forward. That we should make move to be included in the policy making, that nothing about us should be decided without us, that there is nothing about us without us. She emphasized the essence of networking, of brick building, of supporting ourselves. In short, that was our message to us.
Thank you so much, Alaja Tinu, for that beautiful message from Ajia Olanike Muslimah. Please do send our warm regards to her. That we really do appreciate for us sending in a paper despite being unable to be with us today. Thank you so much, Ma. Going to Mrs. Adenisola Adio Adepoju. Assalamu alaikum, Ma.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I move on, I will say thank you very much for having me here today. I think I'm probably the youngest person on this panel, and I'm honored to be amongst women that have gone before me. So Auntie Mo is someone I respect so much. I look at her from afar, and I would say I understudy her from afar. And today I met my senior colleague. I call her my senior colleague because we are. So having said that, I would say the theme of today was us acknowledging the past and treasuring the present. And I would like to dwell more on that. And before I go on, in the comment section, our participants, because I'm an educator, so I do this a lot. I don't, I make sure people participate in my discussion, no matter how short it is. So if you're in the comment section, if you're married, I want you to say type A in the comment section. And if you are single, type B, as in you are married, type A, or type B in the comment section. I want to see the number of B's and the number of A's we have in the comment section. Okay, I can see A's coming in. Are you telling me all the like the single Muslims didn't attend this? Okay, I can see B now. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for participating. And why I had to ask that is the fact that, like Auntie Mo said, I think in 2018 I was in Singapore and I met I was privileged to meet the now president. And I looked at her, the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, she's a Muslim, like Halima. She had her hair covered and all that. And I looked at it. What took me to Singapore? It's based on me winning a global opportunity that took me to Singapore. It's called the Unleash Global Innovation Lab, which I'm currently an ambassador for. And I was the only one selected from, like, let me say, from Nigeria, and maybe one of in there. In history, like you go back, I look at the likes of Khadija, and I'm like, she was wealthy. She was wealthy. Like history has it that she was wealthy, and she did not acquire a wealth. Like the prophets met her as a wealthy woman. She was wealthy. She was well traveled. I'm not a scholar in Islam. I said, but the only leader country, by the way, like it's a land of inspiration, Singapore. So if there is nothing that is preventing you from getting to that position, I ask you again, who did this? Who are you feeding it? Who has shown you examples? Then you sit in your corner of the home and you lie to yourself and say, my husband is the one that is preventing me. I ask you again, when I'm a life coach and I speak to women, I said, you know what? You are stopping yourself, because at the end of the day, nobody pushes a woman to achieve a dream if she has not said, this is what I need to achieve. And I remember meeting my husband just shortly. I was preparing to start my PhD in the abroad, shortly before then. And the very first things we discussed was, I said, I'm reading to start my PhD. I was reading for an international exam. And he said, no problems. You'll be my wife. You will get there. And it was an established thing. Like I was going to pursue PhD. I was going to get to the top. Like there was no negotiation. What we were going to negotiate was, oh, let's maybe we to have a child first and everything. But the career was like, did you ever establish it to your partner to say, this is what I want. Now let's negotiate the terms on how we are going to get there. So ask yourself, who did this to you? You need to sit down and ask yourself, what exactly do I want? You need to take up leadership position, because the Bible says, there are people that have come before us that have been there. You can't sit down and do nothing. It is a disservice to Islam for you not to take up leadership position. Because when I am at the table, I am alone and I'm looking for support for people to say, yes, we have to do this together. So it is a disservice to Islam for you not to take up leadership position. That is my thought. And It is so, like I always say, this is the best time to be alive as a woman. This is the best time to be alive, because you will see, WH something for women, United Nations something for women. You don't even see for men again. Everything is out there. The number of global opportunities I see daily for women. And in fact, Muslim women, because these days they see that Muslim women don't make these opportunities, they create some. If you are from something, and you're still not there, who did this to you? All you have to do is seek the knowledge, go out from your comfort zone and take it. So if you're not getting there, start from your mindset. It is your mindset that is stopping you, because Islam is not, the society is not, you are stopping yourself. That is my thought on the topic of today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Aderisola. And from Ajia Surura and Alhaja Atinuke, thank you so much. Emphasis on what I've heard from the three of you is, one, we need to learn, we need to equip ourselves, and we need to apply this knowledge as it's the service to the Muslim Ummah. If you choose not to apply what you know, if you choose not to be engaging, and like what you rightly said, Mrs. Aderisola, negotiation is key. So we have so many ladies out there who want to be this and be that, but when they consider the facts and the roles they have to play as a mother and as a wife, with the great art of negotiation, you can put it to the table to say, okay, I want to do this at this time. Is not. And like you emphasized, you cannot be the you wanted to say something, Ma?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say that the reaction of women, what culture had fed women with until hitherto, has to be relearned or unlearned, has to be unlearned. You know, there are occasions when people misinterpreted cultural factors for religious factors, like the people she was talking to and turned their backs on her. Do you know that there are some sisters who will want to talk in a gathering and will still turn their back today because they thought that is the religion? They have learned the wrong thing. And when Akinisola Adepoju was talking, I was so touched. Starting off a relationship, exactly what you want, where you want to be, that is fantastic. It will not happen in my time. You don't meet a man for the first time and you tell him, no, I'm going to read up to PhD. Of course, me, Surura, I wanted to read up to PhD. And I can remember the first time I told my husband I wanted to go back to the University of Lagos, where I had my first degree, to do my master's. He didn't like it. For about 2 weeks, we didn't talk. And I had to shed my idea. One other thing that I think females can do now is join with associations. Mix up. Don't be rigid Don't live in your own world alone. If you are not in your own world, you will be member of this kind of discussion that we are having today. And if you are part of it and you hear what other women have done, how they got around it, you will know how to do your own too. So this is where I stand. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, Ma. I'm still coming back to you, Ma. So the first question we have here, this is for Alhaja Oyero. It says,
Yes.
given the patriarchal nature of our society, how can a woman overcome the challenges of shaping an inspiring future? From what you have highlighted, there's actually there's a concern. So we want to know, how do we go about overcoming this?
Thank you very much for this question. And when Auntie Mo was talking, she spoke about the patriarchal nature of our society, the male domain, the male control, feeling that women are the weak bunch. But if they are physically not as strong as men, is their psyche, is their mentality weak? It is not. God created us should expose the two of them, the two sexes, to balanced upbringing. It shouldn't be from the home that the boy child will be made to sit down while the girl child labors for the family. It is the girl child that will go to the stream to fetch water. It is the girl child that will wash the clothes. It is the girl child that will wash the plates. Let them, both males and females, do it together. It starts from child raising. Then at the point of giving education, thank God, we are getting away from a society where the male child is preferred when it comes to giving education. Educate them equally. And not just that, they should both be exposed to equal information in business and leadership. See, in the past, our mothers that were traders will tie the money, what do I call it, igbanu, the money belt on their girls to go and buy products for sale in the shop. They were made to face real life challenges, act real life situations. They have their mothers or their bosses as their mentors, as the person to report to, as the person to give
Quickly, I would move to Alajatino Muritala. Would like to know, what are some of the cultural or religious norms that affect the attainment of leadership positions by the Muslimah, and how can these issues be addressed? I understand that some of those questions are quite interrelated, and some of our previous speakers, even at our yesterday's session, have addressed some of these issues, but would like to hear from your own experience. What do you think are the issues we have, and how can it be addressed?
Thank you very much. These cultural and religious norms are many, but I've just mentioned some of them and the way to overcome it, the way to address it. Like my mothers have said, women has been perceived as helpless, they are less in intelligence. Culturally, they are supposed to be seen and not heard. They are bound to the kitchen. They are bound to the home front. They are just for procreation or bringing of children at the home front. That they are not supposed to come out. And anyone that does something different is a deviant. And religiously too, men from all faiths, both Islam and another faith, Islam has used religious texts to place women at the back of the scene, that they cannot lead. There's an hadith which I refer to, which people who want to hold fast to the fact that women cannot lead, to an hadith that says that the Prophet ﷺ said that any nation that is being led by a woman shall never prosper. And for that, they take it as that women cannot lead. But that is why it is important for women, especially Muslim women, like my mother said, to learn and unlearn and relearn again. We should understand our religion. If we understand our religion, we will learn that this particular hadith, some scholars have said that it is content specific, that the Prophet ﷺ is referring to a particular nation, a Persian nation, who the Prophet wrote to their leader, and the leader turned the Prophet later. The Prophet ﷺ was upset and learned that even the king has died and his daughter has been made king, the queen, to rule the nation. And the Prophet ﷺ said those statements that the nation who gives its leadership to a woman shall never prosper. So some scholars have let us to know that it is referring to a particular nation and not all nations. That we should consider that the Quran praises the leadership of Bilqis as a queen. The Quran did not, Quran chapter 27, for example, did not condemn her as a leader. That our mother, Aisha, may the peace of Allah be with her, led the battle of the camel, like the former speaker have said. So we should understand and learn our religion and know what our religion says, so that interpretation of text, we will overcome it. These stereotypes, we will overcome it. And as for the cultural stereotypes, it's just that coming together to say no to these things. Then we should even work together as women to put some of these things in our constitution to help
fear of we pushing for women involvement in activities. However, we need to be careful that we're not just making up the numbers. We're not just being there because a woman has to be on the board, but we're being impactful. We're bringing our A game to the table. We're letting them know that we can do
that this girl doesn't want to be married, though. So nobody, no lady at that time will dare do it. A lot of you now bear your maiden names. Some of you at best join your maiden name to your marital names. It is quite right. Fatima bintu Rasulullah radiyallahu anha answered her father's name. Aisha bintu Abu Bakr answered her father's name. These are our leaders. These are the people we look up to. Religiously, it is not forbidden. And maybe we should make it one of the things to demand for when a man comes to ask for your hand in marriage, to say, me, I'm not going to drop my father's name. Do you agree?
Yes.
And you know, when they first come for the first time, they want everything. They will let go anything that will make them happy. So you can make it a condition. Ask for it if you want it. There's nothing wrong with it. As Muslims, it's okay to bear our maiden name. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much more for that. You're taking us back again to the negotiation act. Like, you need to put on the table all you want and ensure that it's actually convenient. So we need to be careful on our demands. However, it doesn't stop us for actually aiming for those dreams. Thank you so much, ma. Mrs. Aderisola, I almost thought I lost you. I'm so glad you're back. So as an entrepreneur, this question is for you. So we want to know what approaches can be utilized to sustain women empowerment such that they can impact their communities without sacrificing their morals and deen.
Thank you very much. First, I think I would say I've enjoyed Grandma's delivery, and good enough. She's my senior alumni at University of Lagos, where I currently teach. 2 degrees from you. So, like, somehow, as she was speaking, I was just so proud. Like, I'll say, Grandma finished from my school and all that. She's so knowledgeable. She has a lot of wisdom. Like, I'm so proud to be in the same panel as she is. So, and she mentioned something about negotiation, as in for your name. By the way, that is why I bear Ajiu Adepoju. Ajiu is my father's name. Adepoju is my father's name. Like, it was, for me, it was like, I'm going to, bear my father's name alongside your name. And that's where we had today. And it did that change of name for me. So I want to tell the women here first that it is possible when you state your terms, that is provided you first align with people that have your values. Exactly like so I chose not to do a bank work. I chose not to do something. If I chose to do this, it was not out of lack of intelligence. You keep empowering, like I say, when people see you, when younger ones see you, I see a lot of Muslim people that come, oh, you're a Muslimah. Maybe in school, I say yes. And you know, they look, I say, oh, so you expect a Muslim to be dense or to not know anything or to not be empowered. I said, what exactly do you think? So in order for us, I always say, like, if you're not doing it for you, if you're not going to get yourself empowered for you, do it for that girl child you gave birth to. Do it for that girl child. Do it for that girl child you give birth to, for them to understand that this is not the norm. Like, empowerment is a part of what you should be doing. You should empower yourself. And one of the funniest things I heard about women is like, oh, there is no money. There is no this thing to empower myself. And I keep telling people, I started my fashion business from a 20,000 naira loan, and I grew it to millions. And that was because obviously then you cannot say you finish Unilag with a distinction. You say you want to go and start tailor in quotes.
I say, Jazakallahu khairan jaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.